If you would, can you tell me a little bit about yourself and what had you start your company or get involved with the company?
So I'll first go into my background. I have 22 years of academic and pharmaceutical experience in oncology. I was responsible for discovering a novel biomarker and developing RNA therapeutics and diagnostics for the treatment of triple negative breast cancer. I have received my master's in microbiology and immunology from India, and I also worked as a senior scientific officer in Neopharma. I received my PhD in biochemistry and molecular biology in New York Medical College. I was an assistant professor in the Department of Biochemistry and Molecular Biology in University of South Alabama. Currently, I am a visiting scientist in the Department of Pharmacology, New York Medical College. I own 5 US patents and I have authored or co-authored 18 plus publications. I was a co-PI on 1 NIH grant, and currently I'm consulting on 2 NIH grants. And I pretty much own 100% of the equity of the company. And as far as my motivation goes, I'm sure as a woman you relate with it. I guess it was 10, 12 years ago, I got this scary phone call after my first mammo, and they are like, you know what, you need to come down for your second mammograph. And my kid was only 3 years old at that time, and I went through this panic. And while I was sitting in the waiting room, I was just thinking that I have a PhD in breast cancer research, I have industry experience. Why don't I combine my expertise and, manure my transition back to the industry and develop some drugs for breast cancer? And luckily, it was just a scare. I was okay. And then I decided that, this God-given gift, I should use it to save life of other people who are not as lucky as me. Besides, a lot of members of my family were diagnosed with cancers of different kind. And at that point, it was not good enough for me to be just a supporter or sympathizer anymore. And this laid the foundation of our company. And the mission is now to develop effective drugs for breast cancer. I understand that battling breast cancer is a very long and painful journey. And as a woman and mother, I feel I'm equipped, more equipped to understand the urgency to expedite the development of these drugs and reach it out to the patients sooner or later. So the purpose of our venture is to see that every woman can live her life to her fullest and fulfill her dreams without falling a victim to this deadly disease. And lastly, I would like to say that we believe in this phrase that the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. This hand may belong to a man or a woman because breast cancer affects both of them. So our mission, therefore, is to see that this hand is there to rock their child's cradle, to hold their hand when they take their first step, clap for the graduation, give away the bride, and then again rock the cradle of their grandchild. So I hope God and you will help us to fulfill our mission.
What problem or problems does your company address?
So breast cancer, as you know, is the second highest killer disease in women. Although there is a lot of progress made for the treatment of hormonal positive, that is ER and PR positive, and growth receptor positive, which is HER2 positive cancer treatment, there is virtually no effective therapies available in the market for triple negative breast cancer or TNBC. So TNBC is the most aggressive type of breast cancer with high prevalence rate of 15 to 20%. It has got poor prognosis, poor survival rate. In addition, complex heterogeneity, which means currently there are 6 different subtypes of TNBC identified, and also ethnic disparity, which means the manifestation of this disease is different with different ethnic groups such as Caucasian women, African American women, and Mexican women. So this makes its treatment more complicated, and it is mostly restricted to radiation, chemotherapy, and surgery. Although there are some drugs which are out there and tried for the treatment of triple negative breast cancer, such as combination of chemotherapy and immunotherapy drugs or PARP inhibitors, they have only been able to increase the cell survival by 2 or at the most 5 months. So oncologists have voiced their frustration and limitation for the options that is available to treat TNB patients, and they hope that we as biotech or scientists or biotech companies will come up with a different approach, a different target to develop a new drug and give them this option of, offer this option to treat their patients more appropriately or more adequately so that they will increase the survival rates. And therefore, considering the feasible size of the TNBC patient, it is imperative for taking a radical approach, and that is finding biomarkers or targets which will be completely receptor independent and directly involved in cell proliferation of cancer cells. So that is a problem that we are dealing with.
Can you explain who specifically experiences this problem?
So it is mostly affected, women are affected, women of all ages. Unfortunately, the age is getting lower and lower for many conditions and environmental, socio-economical. Men are also affected. The total breast cancer, out of the total breast cancer population, 4% of them are men. And specifically 5% of the breast cancer patients inherit genetically. And most of these genetically inherited breast cancers have BRCA1 or 2 gene mutation. Interestingly, or I should say unfortunately, 23% of this cancer patient with BRCA1 mutation eventually develop TNBC kind of phenotype. So we are trying to do many things with a little bit less resources than we would want.
Tell me your solution as if I'm a 10th grader.
So what we have done is that we are having a very radical approach in that we are not looking at the targets which are currently available and finding a new drug. What we have done is we went out there and found a brand new biomarker, and this protein, biomarkers are essentially proteins. This protein is highly upregulated in TNBC and all other kinds of breast cancer. Interestingly, this protein is directly involved in DNA replication or all the stages of cell proliferation. And what we found that when we inhibit this protein, it selectively kills only cancer cells and does not affect the normal cells. So what we did was we developed two kinds of therapies. One is RNAi therapy. And using our RNAi therapy, we rigorously validated this biomarker to make sure whether we can use it as a target to develop drug. And the data that we obtained from these studies support our conclusion that this biomarker is an excellent target for developing drug. So we have gone ahead and identified two small inhibitors or drug targets which inhibit triple negative breast cancer cells by 95%, and they do not affect the non-cancerous cells. So this is first time we have found a drug which does not affect the normal cells.
Is it going to be an oral medication? Is it going to be an infusion?
As of now, we are going to have it as an IV. That would be easier for us to get an IND approval since we are not coming out from such a huge organization. So we would like to take the normal path and get an IND approval and move towards FDA approval as soon as possible. So it will be an IV.
Great, thank you. Can you give me an example of how somebody may benefit from this?
So the benefits of our therapy over those which are currently available is, first of all, it's a revolutionary therapy because for the first time, our drug is directly targeting DNA replication. Therefore, the cancer cells cannot find a roundabout. One of the limitations of the current therapy is that if you block one pathway for the cancer cells, they can circumvent that pathway and find a new pathway and yet grow. So this is what we are taking care of. For this cancer cells to grow, they need DNA replication. Our inhibitors are just blocking DNA replication. So no matter what, the cancer cells cannot grow. Then the other thing is that we are targeting a brand new biomarker. So we are not in the Me Too pool. We are not finding more drugs for the same targets. So this is something exceptionally new. The other thing is that these drugs do not directly damage DNA. Therefore, it gives an opportunity for the adjacent normal cells to repair and regrow. Other thing is that it is a receptor independent therapy. So it will work for all the different kinds of subtypes of breast cancer. Then the other main important thing is that it selectively targets only the cancer cells, does not affect the normal cells. It inhibits cancer cell viability, that is whether the cells will be live or they'll grow by 95%, which is a huge amount. And there are two things that a anti-cancer drug can do, that it can stop the growth, but once you remove the therapy, it can come back. But our drugs completely kill the cancer cells, therefore it cannot regrow.
So what are the biggest challenges that lie ahead for you?
So, considering based on this industry practice, if we just look at the technology point of view, the outcome of phase 1 and up to phase 3 clinical trial is very crucial, specifically in terms of drug potency, toxicology, as well as side effects, because that will be a determining factor for FDA approval and market adoption. And from the capital point of view, of course, procuring sufficient amount of funds so that we'll be able to effectively achieve all our R&D efforts, this would be a challenge. Interestingly, we are not afraid about the regulatory process, because considering that TNBC is an unmet medical need and it has a seizable patient population, we can apply for the fast track FDA approval, and that should go through.
So is there any last thing that you'd like to share?
So I would like to share our long-term goals. One is that we will be doing clinical studies for phase 1, phase 2 clinical studies for the TNBC drug. By 2025, it is estimated that the total global market will be 30.6 billion, of which TNBC will be 4.59 billion. Then we will develop companion diagnostics, because by 2023, it is anticipated that the global market for anti-cancer diagnostic will be $1.60 billion. And once we have completed the anti-breast cancer portfolio, we would like to also test our drugs for glioblastoma, which is another unmet medical need. There's absolutely no targeted therapies available. And we know that our biomarker is upregulated in this kind of brain cancer. And so that would be our next opportunity. And that market is also huge, which is $1.4 billion. And the second point is that we have, as far as patent protection is concerned, we have 2 US patents for our RNAi therapy. We are in the process of filing a provisional patent for our drug inhibitors. And we have 2 US patents for our diagnostics, and all the IP belongs to the company. We don't have any university component.
Thank you for watching the Lowdown on Cancer presented by the Cancer Fund. To learn more about what's coming in future episodes, visit us at www.cancerfund.com. While you're there, check out past episodes and be sure to click Join Us to become a member of the Cancer Fund community. As a member of the community, you'll receive early access to new interviews as well as other announcements. Make sure to connect to all of our social media channels so you don't miss a thing. In addition to getting early access to new episodes of the Lowdown on Cancer, Cancer Fund members play a critical role in driving cancer innovation forward, so that one day we can more than hope. We can actually beat cancer. Thank you for joining us on this journey.